Claxby Hill. We had a very long, homemade Norwegian-style sledge.
No, not that.
We hurtled down, we hit one another.
Go and find her. Where are you going, Master? For a drink?
Okay, you guys want anything else?
3 butterbeers and some ginger and lime, please.
6 shots of giggle water.
Pete Earl Grey, huh?
This snake juice is basically rat poison. Spent my whole life right here in Lackawanna County.
Drink, I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Shut up!
Hello, everybody, and Cody Murphy here, the titular lawyer in A Doctor and a Lawyer Walk Into a Bar. And welcome to the first ever audio edition of Calm Down Cody, my personal blog of the things that I am geeking about and is fueling my fandom. Recently, I've been looking for ways to flex my creative muscles independently, and I have always had a penchant for writing. While I love the guys over at Doctor and a Lawyer, sometimes I walk out of the episodes going, man, I wish I had said that. This is my place to be able to get my thoughts out in a coherent manner and reserving A Doctor and Lawyer for the insanity that often ensues, and to appease the algorithmic gods for shorter and more frequent content. Also, next week, my podcasting hero, Steve Glosson of Geek Out Loud, is coming on to talk Superman, and I wanted to get this out there so that I can just bask in the insanity that it will be. Make sure you keep an eye out for that episode. It is sure to be a good one. With that being said, I present to you my review of Superman. Superman. He is my favorite superhero. Period. End of discussion. That has always made me a bit of a weird case with my fellow millennials and now Gen Z youths. Ironically, the love of Superman is not really one that came from childhood. I was an early connoisseur of podcasts. As mentioned before, my podcasting hero, Steve Glosson of Geek Out Loud, loves Superman. The lead up to Man of Steel on his show was hype central to seeing Superman on the big screen. The discussions on the podcast and the analysis of the original Chris Reeve Superman films caused me to go back and watch them. And let's just say, I got it. There are many things, though, about the Chris Reeve movies that are very much a product of their time. And so from that point on, I devoured every bit of Superman media that I could. I own Superman the Animated Series on Apple TV. I went through 10 seasons of Smallville. Word of advice, do not watch Season 4 while you are recovering from 2 broken elbows. You will question your life choices. Dived right into the comics thanks to the reboot with the New 52, and waited with anxious and bated breath for Man of Steel. I was desperate for a Superman movie made in the 21st century that I could point to my friends and family and say, this is why this character is awesome. The CW Superman and Lois, flawless in his portrayal. But asking people to commit to a small screen show is a tough ask. The big screen still remains the best entry point and cultural frame of reference to share stories with the masses. Man of Steel, while I deeply loved at the time, was not that movie. I respected it as an origin story, and was looking forward to the future. I loved the cast and thought Snyder had the right ingredients for something special that just did not pan out. Batman vs. Superman taught me that Snyder did not understand the character at all. Batman is the only one allowed to brood. So to make my brother happy with a Harry Potter quote, "Waiting! I have done my waiting! 12 years of it!" Let me carefully do the math. 2013 to 2025 is 12 years. All right, time to check into the nursing home. All I can say, James Gunn did it, and I could not be more relieved. What makes Superman special is that he's given the power of the gods. He is essentially Hercules, Jesus, Samson, and a circus-performing strawman all wrapped into one. But instead of coming to rule humanity, thanks to having the greatest parents of all time in Jonathan and Martha Kent, he comes to serve humanity. To riff on other writers, we want to be Superman. Superman wants to be us. What began to give me hope is that when director James Gunn said that his Superman would be a man who believes in kindness in a world that considers kindness to be old-fashioned, my eyebrows raised. I began to think, will James Gunn actually get this right? I was trepidatious, to say the least. I am not a huge fan of Guardians of the Galaxy. They are fine movies, but I was thoroughly and completely whelmed by them. Gunn's trademark is snark and witty banter. Thanks to his influence, the whole of the MCU is now known by it to varying degrees of success. If James Gunn made Guardians but with Superman, I would have been miffed. Being a DC fan in a Marvel world was not fun. You know your characters are great, but the caretakers just kept dropping the ball. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, that's just masochism. Well, he did make Guardians, but with Superman. But Superman was no Star-Lord. You walk into a world in this movie, after the opening of the timeless Superman theme from John Williams, with the understanding that metahumans or superpowered beings have existed in this world for a while, and that Superman has been a public figure for about 3 years. You are thankfully spared an origin story and get right into the action of Superman beaten. If you have seen the trailer, you know the scene. Krypto, the superdog, and just the goodest of good boys, takes Clark to the Fortress of Solitude in order to recover. The fortress was exquisite, and right out of the Silver Age of comics and All-Star Superman, with robots and the message from his Kryptonian parents that he thinks is his call to serve humanity. Afterwards, you get Clark at the Daily Planet, and I have to say they nailed the cast and crew of the planet. You get so many references to Superman lore and the members of Clark and Kal-El's Superman's inner circle that have never had a big screen appearance. But Gunn did a masterful job of introducing these things, but not making having prior knowledge of the lore a requirement to enjoy the film. If anything, Gunn invites you to download the Hoopla app from your public library, or walk into your library, bookstore, or comic book store and just start reading comics to learn more. You have a very clear understanding of who Clark/Superman is. This is a man who was raised to see the best in people, even when they turn on him. When he's back at the farm in Kansas and Ma Kent just asks, "Is our boy going to be okay?" You get right there and then. It is not about politics. It is not about the powers. It is about the heart this man was instilled with. To riff on my friend Grant Averett, because I could not say it better. No, Superman's strongest power is that he is a super man. Gunn gets that, Cornsweat gets that, and now I get it too. He is silly, he is corny at times. I will admit, I even rolled my eyes when he saved a squirrel from harm's way. In a world that is increasingly difficult to find good masculine role models, Clark is it. This nerdy Boy Scout finds a lot of himself in Clark. Lois Lane was the perfect foil to Clark's optimism. In many ways, to be a great reporter, you have to have a cynical streak. You dig into the dregs of the likes of Lex Luthor for a living, and you will have a bit of a hard edge to you. What makes the Lois character so vital is that while the world needs Superman, Lois is Clark's Superman. She keeps him grounded, challenges him when he needs to be challenged, and when the literal weight of the world is on his shoulders, Lois is there for him. Rachel Brosnahan is a fine addition to the legacy of Lois Lane and would make the likes of Terry Hatcher, Erica Durance, Margot Kidder, and Bitsy Tulloch proud. She makes Clark less naive, and Clark makes her more optimistic. Finally, this brings me to our villain, Lex Luthor, and the underlying social issues that are laced throughout this movie. One of the questions that is asked, what role does Superman play in human affairs? After he stops the war of a more powerful nation trying to invade a poorer and weaker nation. I wonder what real-world conflicts Gunn might be allegorizing. The U.S. is on edge trying to figure out what to do with Superman. That is where Lex comes in. And his plot is to use this invasion to discredit Superman and to ultimately take him down. It is very clear, if you follow modern politics, who Lex Luthor is a stand-in for players in our current time. But Gunn does something that many writers seem to have lost the ability to do. He shows. He doesn't tell. Yes, if you have a modicum of intelligence, we know what real-world connections these characters represent now. But in 50 years, this movie will hold up because these themes and these conflicts are timeless. Lex, in all his bravado, is a deeply insecure man who sees these things outside of his control and is desperate to control them. There will always be a billionaire consumed with avarice and power and envy, wanting more and more. There will always be corrupt politicians and dictators who use their people as pawns in their games. This movie will have a timeless quality because it commentates on our world while not directly saying who these characters are supposed to be. This movie invites you to reflect on those themes and to live out those themes as Clark Kent would. It is the mark of good storytelling when that is effective. In a world of sound bites and clickbait, anything that asks us to reflect is welcome. There are also supporting heroes as well, but Gunn keeps it a Superman film by accessing the dregs of DC Comics lore for C and D list heroes. The Justice Gang is where Gunn gets out his Guardians-esque quips while not detracting from Clark being the star of the show. It was a perfect way to show other heroes exist, but he doesn't get outshined by the Justice League, like he did in Batman vs. Superman. With that being said, Mr. Terrific steals the freaking show, and I cannot wait to see more from him, Guy Gardner, and Hawkgirl. If you don't like movies that are intentionally silly and corny, go with God. This movie is not for you. But if you are ready for a movie that makes you want to throw on a towel and pretend you can fly, laugh, cry, and cheer along the way, Superman is the movie our culture has been desperate for. The fact that kids are drawn to it brings me so much joy. So much of our pop culture is directed at my age. Kids need heroes to latch onto. We often forget that we got into this stuff as kids. Kids need to grow up with Superman. Superman does not need to grow up with them. I am so happy that I can finally point to a Superman movie and unequivocally and without reservation say, this is great. Was it perfect? No. But Gunn understood the assignment and executed better than I could have possibly hoped for in light of DC's track record. Well done, DC Studios. Now, excuse me, I have to get this in by tonight or Perry is going to have my head. We'll see you next week, guys.
Are you kidding? I'm working.
All right, I'll be right there.
And grab the movie. Go, 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 go.
Goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend.
Made one, snapped in two, which was